Hey, you. I'm so glad you're here. Today's conversation is going to be about the emotional and mental layers that shape how we show up in our businesses long before we open any client doc or even design a single page. I'm talking about the inner work that influences how we define success, set boundaries, and trust ourselves to do less without losing momentum. It's about the stories we carry around money, productivity, and whether we're doing enough. The feelings that quietly run the show when we're undercharging, over delivering, or just afraid to pause. I believe this inner work, is essential if we want creative businesses that don't just function, but feel good to run. If you can relate, drop a fire emoji in that chat right now because I'm claiming it too, okay? So today, I'm inviting you into the conversation, not to fix or force anything, but to reflect, to be curious, and maybe to walk away feeling just a little more at ease with where you are. Let's get into it. I'm Maria. I'm the founder of Yangu Web Studio, where I design custom Squarespace websites that are just strategic as they are soulful. I've been doing this work full time for many years now, but it just feels like it's been even longer trying to untangle all of the survival mode habits that I brought into entrepreneurship with me. I'm the first generation daughter of Vietnamese immigrants, raised with an incredible amount of love and just not a lot of resources. That shaped how I thought about work, about money, and my own worth for a very long time. I learned early on that being helpful, being capable, and productive was how you got to stay in the room. So when I started my business, I applied that same logic. Say yes to every project, deliver twice as much, but don't charge too much. I remember one of my first big projects, I undercharged so badly. I was working nights and weekends just to keep up. But I told myself that this is normal. This is what it's like earning your place. And for a while, I believed that. But eventually, that version of success, the one built on proving that I could survive anything, started to break down. So, this talk isn't coming from someone who has it all figured out. It's coming from someone who had to unlearn a lot and is still learning to feel safe, doing less, charging more, and defining success on my terms. And if anything I say today helps you feel just a little less alone in your own process, then it's so worth it. Today, we're going to talk about scarcity. I want to start with a story, or maybe more of a snapshot. When I was 10, money meant sardines in tomato sauce and a baguette split between me, my mom, and my sister. If you know, you know. It meant saving goldfish crackers from free school lunch so that I'd have something to eat after school. And I knew we were low income. This wasn't something that I just figured out later on, it was my reality. I remember my mom pulling me out of elementary school to help translate paperwork at the welfare center so that we could get food stamps and Medi-Cal. That's how early on I started understanding scarcity. It wasn't this abstract thing, it was my daily life. Now, what I didn't fully understand back then, though, was just how much love and creativity were woven into our survival, not just from my family, but from mentors, nonprofits, even school counselors, people who saw something in me and then made space for it. Looking back, I can see how creativity became more than just expression. It was a tool, a way for me to process what felt too big or maybe just too confusing to say out loud. Whether I was drawing or journaling or even dancing, those outlets helped me move through this heaviness of lack. And what that taught me was that even in the middle of food insecurity, I could still feel abundant. I could still feel joy. Creativity gave me the sense of power even when I had no control over the circumstances around me. It helped me stay connected to myself and to the possibility of something bigger than just survival. And as I got older, money became something else entirely. It became energy, this tool, a portal. It allowed me to invest in mentors and courses and tools, and eventually in a vision of life beyond just getting by. But that shift didn't erase what I had internalized. I still looked at money through the lens of survival. Do I have enough for rent? Do I have enough for food? Can I even afford to rest if I get sick? And in the early years of running my business, that often meant saying yes to any project that came my way because who knew when the next one would come or if it would even be enough to cover my needs. I say all of this because this conversation about scarcity, about success, about creative ease is one that we don't have enough of, especially for those of us that are navigating work and identity, ambition and caregiving, and even rest and survival. Our lived experiences shape how we work and whether we feel safe to pause. I see you. I'm holding space for you. You're not bad at business. Maybe like me, you just never felt safe enough to do less. And today I want to share exactly why I started doing that and what it changed. So, what is the scarcity mindset really? Because it doesn't always sound like I broke. Sometimes it sounds like, let me say yes to this project, even though it's not aligned, even though these past few times I talked to this potential client, the communication may not be there, or maybe their budget isn't aligned with the deliverables that they're asking for. This could also sound like, even though I have savings, I still feel pressure to produce because I'm so used to being on the go that when I even stop to pause, I just feel so guilty. It can also sound like I can't slow down or it'll all fall apart. It's important to observe and acknowledge our patterns because once we can name them, then we can start to shift them. And for me, one of those patterns started in my personal finances. If I was already paying off my credit card, I figured I might as well throw in a few extra things. I think I might not need this now, but I might want it later. So I better get it just in case. And that just in case mindset followed me straight into entrepreneurship. I wasn't just overspending, I was overcommitting, over delivering, overdoing, not because I didn't know better though, but because I just didn't feel safe not to keep doing the thing. Even when I was hitting 10K months, I didn't feel secure. I didn't feel like I could slow down. It was like the fruit had already bloomed and I hadn't even stopped to taste it because I was busy scanning the garden, just wondering when would I ever get to eat. And that's the thing about survival mode. It doesn't always turn off just because our circumstances change. And eventually, I had to pause to ask myself, what am I chasing? Why am I treating every month like a crisis when the younger version of me would have cried tears of joy to be here? And I realized that making money stopped feeling like anything at all because I wasn't letting myself feel it. I was so focused on what was next. I didn't make space to be present with what I had built. It wasn't until I slowed down to define what success even meant to me that I saw how I'd been managing my business like a crisis, always bracing for the next thing to go wrong, always chasing the next marker of security that was just out of reach. But that shift, it didn't happen overnight. But it started when I got clear on my values, got honest about my capacity, and asked myself, what do I want my business to feel like? And when I started listening, I created space to raise my rates, say no with love, create offerings for clients who maybe just weren't ready for custom design yet, and to design with curiosity again. Clarifying my values and getting honest about what I wanted my business to feel like created space. And for me, that space looked like ease. Ease meant being paid better. It meant that I could rest and then come back to the work with energy and ideas and creativity. And it meant working with clients that were as just invested in the process as I was. And I saw the ripple effects. One of those clients was Lauren. She was a dream fit. We created a site that felt like her, and within 2 weeks of launching her site, she booked in over $12,000 of new work. Now, that didn't just happen because I tightened up my web copy or I tweaked my positioning. Those things mattered, but they weren't the root. The root was me. It was the inner work that helped me show up with clarity, that helped me attract the kind of client who resonated with what I really had to offer and not just what I had to prove. And we weren't operating from a place of panic either. We were aligned, grounded, clear. And that alignment, that was the receipt for the work that I had already done within. So now what, right? After redefining what success meant to me, I realized that clarity alone wasn't enough. I needed consistent ways to stay connected to it, especially on the hard days. Those practices helped me return to ease when I felt myself just slipping into old habits. I had journaling prompts like these, like, what belief about money no longer serves me? I had to sit with this one for a long time. Before I could name the belief, I just felt tired, stressed, so anxious about productivity and deadlines that I'd have stress dreams about the things I couldn't figure out that day. And eventually I realized the belief running underneath it all was this: money has to be hard earned to be worth anything. That belief showed up in how I priced, how I worked, and how I judged myself anytime I rested. But letting it go also didn't mean that I stopped working hard. It just meant that I stopped punishing myself for wanting ease. It meant that I could see money as a supportive tool, not just proof that I had struggled enough to deserve it. I had another journaling prompt like, what would success feel like in this season? This one helped me stop chasing like a moving target and just focus on what actually mattered right now. I remember one of my first summers in business. It was so slow. I seriously considered putting a stop to the entire thing because I was so stressed out if I was going to make rent or not. And that feeling stuck with me. So much so that when springtime came again that next year, I felt that dread creep in. What if it slows down like that again? But this time I asked myself, what would success feel like in this summer season? It would feel like making use of my time in a way that felt impactful. So I chose to redesign my site, update my portfolio, and just do all the things I normally wouldn't have had time to do. And instead of fearing the quiet that was coming, I planned for it. And I turned it into something that I could actually look forward to. I checked in with myself as well, either on a weekly basis or even quarterly, just to understand, where am I? Where am I planning to go? And what can I do to get out of my own way if I need to, right? Like, these questions are simple, but they're powerful. They helped me recognize when I'm spiraling in fear or trying to push past my capacity and invite me to realign instead of push through. And sometimes the most honest answer I could give myself was just stop tweaking the page, send the invoice, and go outside. Because you don't always need to do more. Sometimes you need to trust in what you've already planted. I started today's talk sharing a little bit about scarcity, not just the kind that shows up in your business account, but the kind that settles into your nervous system, the kind that whispers, you have to say yes to everything. You're only doing enough when you're exhausted, or rest is just risky. But when I started asking myself, what do I want my business to feel like? Everything shifted. I realized it was never about reaching this perfect milestone. It was about being able to breathe, being able to create from a place of trust instead of urgency. So if you take one thing from this talk, let it be this. You're not behind, you're not bad at business, you're just human. And the more honest you are about the beliefs and the fears quietly steering the ship, the more power you have to shift your direction. You get to define what success is. You get to decide what ease looks like, and your business gets to rise to meet that. And if you want a little support along the way, I made something for you. It's called the Inner Work Companion. These are journaling prompts that just echo some of the things we talked about today, like your relationship with money, your values, your capacity, all that good stuff. It's not a workbook to fix anything per se. It's just a space for you to come back to when you're feeling off track and you just want to realign. You can get it at my website here. And I hope that it reminds you that ease isn't a luxury. It's a wise, creative, and powerful choice, and you're allowed to make it. Thank you so much.